August 20, 1964. War on Poverty. The Economic Opportunity Act, signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson, represented a cornerstone of the United States legislative efforts to address systemic poverty. As a central element of Johnson's War on Poverty, the act marked a turning point in federal involvement in social welfare and economic equality. The legislation was passed during a period of strong Democratic control in Congress and amid heightened national awareness of economic disparity in the country. The Economic Opportunity Act established the Office of Economic Opportunity, tasked with coordinating and administering a broad range of anti-poverty programs. The OEO operated under the executive branch, reporting directly to the president. Its creation signaled a shift toward direct federal engagement in community development and social reform. The act authorized nearly $1 billion in funding in its first year alone, an unprecedented commitment at the time. The legislation created several key programs. Among them was Job Corps, designed to provide vocational training and education for disadvantaged youth. Volunteers in Service to America, often referred to as the Domestic Peace Corps, was also formed to place volunteers in low-income communities. Head Start was another notable program, offering early childhood education and nutrition services to children from poor families. Additionally, the Neighborhood Youth Corps aimed to offer work experience and training to young people from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. Community action agencies were central to the Act's philosophy of maximum feasible participation. These agencies were intended to be run at the local level with input from the communities they served. CAAs were required to include members of the poor in decision-making processes, a novel and sometimes controversial feature of the program. Critics, including some local and state officials, claimed that this undermined traditional governance structures, while supporters viewed it as a necessary component for true grassroots empowerment. One of the unique aspects of the Economic Opportunity Act was its attempt to break the cycle of poverty through education, job training, and community development rather than solely through financial assistance. The Act's programs were intended to address the root causes of poverty and provide the tools necessary for individuals to achieve economic self-sufficiency. It reflected the belief that poverty was not inevitable but could be reduced through targeted government intervention. Despite its ambitious goals, the Economic Opportunity Act faced challenges in implementation. Some programs were underfunded or faced resistance at state and local levels. Additionally, the rapid expansion of federal programs strained administrative capacities. Nonetheless, many of the programs created under the Act laid the foundation for future federal anti-poverty efforts and remain active in modified forms today. Head Start, for example, continues to operate under the Department of Health and Human Services and serves over 1 million children annually. By the end of the 1960s, the Act had funded thousands of community projects across the United States. However, political support for the OEO declined in the 1970s. Under President Richard Nixon, many of the agency's functions were dismantled or transferred to other departments. In 1981, the Omnibus Reconciliation Act formally abolished the OEO, but several of its programs continued under different federal agencies. The Economic Opportunity Act of 1964 was historically significant for its comprehensive approach to poverty reduction and its role in expanding the federal government's role in social welfare. It reflected a major policy shift during the Johnson administration, integrating civil rights and economic reform objectives. Though not without limitations, the Act helped to institutionalize federal responsibility for addressing poverty and provided the framework for later social programs. In retrospect, the Economic Opportunity Act served as a landmark in American social policy. It demonstrated a legislative commitment to reducing poverty through structural programs rather than short-term relief. Its enduring legacy includes not only the continued operation of programs like Head Start and Vista, but also a broader acceptance of the federal government's role in social justice and economic equity. The Act's signing in the White House Rose Garden on that August day in 1964 remains a defining moment in the history of the American welfare state. For enthusiasts of historical ephemera, visit history-collectors.com to find collectibles that might complement your collection. You can own a piece of history.